I'm pleased to present you experience, what we have gained in applying ArcGIS online tools for stakeholder involvement and decision support with regard to project related to land sea interactions. And so in the Southwestern Kurzeme case study. And this work has been implemented by expert team of Baltic Environmental Forum. Me and my colleague Kristīna Veidemane was mostly in charge for conceptual part and stakeholder interactions in this project, while our colleague Marta Štube was actually the one who was developing ArcGIS online tools and is really the expert in that. And Vinogradovs supported us also with more in-depth GIS work and ecosystem service mapping and assessment and landscape assessment. And so first shortly about the objective of this case study of Southwestern Kurzeme case. We have been aiming to develop spatial solutions how to balance national interests of offshore wind energy production with the interests of local communities for preserving landscape and boosting coastal tourism and recreation. And our case study area included a coastal stretch starting from Latvian and Lithuanian border up to border of Pāvilos and Ventspils municipalities and extended to 10 kilometers inland from coast and also covering adjacent marine waters of Latvia. And to illustrate our case study approach, it can be described by several building blocks. And so one of the fundamental parts in that was biophysical mapping of landscape qualities and ecosystem services, so which included more conventional GIS work. And so there we were identifying different landscape and seascape units, carrying out intensive field work, both on land and from sea, and analyzing different spatial data sets and producing assessment matrices, and finally, a large set of different maps of characterizing landscape qualities and ecosystem service supply. And this work we supplemented by stakeholder engagement in assessment of our case study area, and that we did using different ArcGIS online tools like Survey 123 and Web App Builder. And as a result, we had plenty of different information, which we have pulled together in a Land Sea Act online map explorer, which we developed using Experience Builder. And this map explorer we used for stakeholder engagement in scenario building on offshore wind energy development in the sea and tourism in the coast, and for visualization of our impact assessment of the proposed scenarios, and finally the development of optimum solutions, how to balance this land and sea use of land and sea resources. First, I wanted little bit given insight in this part of biophysical assessment. So there is we organize this work in three main dimensions. So in terrestrial part, we have identified 55 landscape units based on landscape topology, land uses, and assessing them in relation to supply of 15 ecosystem services, including also landscape qualities. On the shoreline, we identified 17 landscape units and assessed them with regard to 4 landscape qualities such as aesthetic value, naturalness, cultural heritage, and recreation. And in the marine part, we identified 13 seascape units based on such features as bathymetry, sediments, and underwater habitat types, and again assessed them with regard to 10 ecosystem services. And so as a result of this assessment work, we compiled a large set of different maps and analysis. And now I would move to part on using ArcGIS online tools for stakeholder engagement in this exercise. So first, we wanted also to get a stakeholder perspective on this landscape qualities of of our coastal area. And for that, we have been developing such an application using ArcGIS Web App Builder and ArcGIS Survey 123. And so we tested it in our stakeholder workshop, where we divided participants in several groups and asked them to assess these landscape qualities using this ArcGIS web application. And I will show you briefly how it works. So I'm now opening this application. And here is brief information about territory. Here you see our study area, terrestrial part. And here participants, by selecting a certain landscape unit which they would like to assess, so they get a pop-up window with a brief information about it. And here also they can select to assess. And with that we connect to Survey 123, which includes this 4 landscape qualities which we were asking them to assess for particular landscape unit, like landscape diversity, scenic views, attractive landscape elements, and landscape uniqueness. And they were asked to assess it in scale 1 to 5. And we also provide a description of the scale, what means each value. And in such way, we actually allowed or helped stakeholders in the learning process about this landscape qualities. And at the same time, it also served for us as a verification of our expert judgment and collection of local knowledge. So, and here is a schematic illustration how it worked. So we compiled these feature layers representing our landscape assessment units and other data about case study area, place them into WebMap, and then using this Web App Builder developed application where we integrated also the Survey 123. And then another application what we used was for assessing recreational sites in the area. And so this is also based on Survey 123, and we used also dashboard for visualization of results. And this survey, stakeholders were asked to place a dot in a map for identifying their most favorite recreational sites. And so for each site, they could place a dot and then indicate also for what kind of activities like swimming, boating, angling, or whatever they use this, or the site is suitable, and then to providing some other data, submit this questionnaire. If they wish to add another dot to the map, they had to fill another questionnaire. So, and we first tested this survey also at our stakeholder workshop, but later we shared it through the social media to a wider group of people, and in total we collected 80 sites and also valuable information about different uses of this for recreation of this coastal area. And finally, we were thinking how to pull together all this information, what we have collected from different assessments, and to use them further in work with stakeholders for scenario building. And so we decided to develop this SEACT Map Explorer, which we developed using Experience Builder tool and pulling together all this information which we have generated. And so we first used it at the stakeholder workshop, where stakeholders were again divided in groups and were developing different alternative pathways or scenarios for offshore wind energy development up till year 2050. And this Map Explorer helped them in gaining information about spatial limitations and opportunities where to place these potential wind parks. And we also use this Map Explorer for informing stakeholders about our impact assessment results of different scenarios and for collating and analyzing different spatial data sets for developing optimum solution of offshore wind energy and tourism development in this area, which was the main task of this case study. And yeah, here is again a schematic illustration of this workflow. So different feature layers, like different assessment maps, what we have produced, we have placed in a web map and then compiled together using Experience Builder, where we integrated also the survey 1, 2, 3 results using dashboard for visualization of this tourism or recreational sites. And now I would show you briefly this our developed Map Explorer, how it works. So at the moment it's here in Latvian, but we are also working on the English version of this Explorer, and so there you can have an information about our case study area and this assessment units which we have identified, and then to go in this separate sections for different assessment categories. Like for inland, we have landscape assessment results. So this is a map with some kind of summary assessment, but you can choose another categories, for example, uniqueness of landscape or scenic value of each of this landscape assessment units, and then by clicking on a certain landscape unit, you can get information here in the window about all the landscape qualities which we have assessed, and more detailed also here below. And yeah, so we have also similarly for this part, this ecosystem service mapping results presented, where you can select what kind of category, like cultural ecosystem services, regulating ecosystem, provisioning ecosystem services, and select what you are interested in. For example, here it is, again, the recreational potential of active recreational activities, or you can see, for example, something from regulating services like habitat maintenance and so on. And similarly, for marine part, we have this ecosystem service mapping results. Here you again can choose, for example, ecosystem service related to global climate control, like carbon sequestration. So which parts of marine areas have greater potential to provide this service. And now I would move to this part demonstrating our stakeholder involvement. Here is results from this survey on recreational sites, where so we using this dashboard tool have been visualizing our results. So here are the 80 locations identified by stakeholders. You can also get more information about each location, for what purpose it is used, and some comments and so on. And then, which probably is the most essential part of this, our work, is related to the scenario building. And here is all kind of information related to this scenario development process. But again, we can see scenarios developed by stakeholders for alternative scenarios, and another is this optimum scenarios, which our expert team developed based on this scenarios proposed by stakeholders, and different kind of supplementing information which we used for that, like for example, areas proposed for wind park development in our Latvian Maritime Spatial Plan. So this information we also use to locate these optimum scenarios. And yeah, also for each of scenarios, by clicking on it, you can get a more detailed information about the impacts of the scenario to different biodiversity features, like habitat types and birds and fish, and on impacts on ecosystem services, and also impacts on coastal landscape, which was a crucial part of this exercise to see how this possible wind parks in offshore wind parks would impact the coastal landscape. So that's, I guess, basically all what I wanted to tell you. And so I will be happy with also with support of my colleague Marta later to answer your questions about this, our experience.